Good afternoon, sir and ma'am. I'm Ronald M. De La Cruz, together with my co-presenters, Neil Magnaye, Joshua James Manalo, and Aaron Makalintal. We are the students of Philippine States College of Aeronautics, Fernando Air Base. And now we're presenting our research entitled A Proposed Prototype of Runway Lights and Marking as Instructional Material.
Background of the study. Landing aids have been developed to help pilots determine the best landing course and to make landing safer. In the late 1920s, airports began using lights when landing fields were designated with spinning lights so that they could be found after dark. In the early 1930s, airports installed the earliest forms of approach lighting. Considerable additional visual guidance is given to pilots by painted markings on the runway. Introduction. Intending to assure safe landing and taking off of aircraft, airports provide visual aids. These aids guide the pilot on the runway or taxiway. Airport aids includes runway and taxiway markings and signs, navigation aids, edge lighting, and runway light landing aids. Statement of the problem. This study aimed to propose a prototype of runway light and markings as instructional material. This research seeks to find answers to the following. 1. What is the demographic profile of the respondents in terms of age and sex? Number 2. How effective is the prototype as instructional material for both the first-year AMT students and the subject instructors in learning and identifying the runway lights and markings? 3. What is the perception of the airport and airway subject instructors on the proposed prototype as instructional material?
Research paradigm and conceptual framework. Input. The raw materials that the researchers will be use are sand, cement, gravel, metal rods, metal wires, LED light strips, electric wires, and paint. Process. First, the researchers are going to make a mold. Then we will make a structure out of metal rods and metal wires that will fit in the mold. We will pour the cement mixture into the mold and let it dry and harden. Then we will put the LED lights. Lastly, we will paint the markings. Output. The researchers will be able to manifest a functional single runway that can be used as an instructional material. Hypothesis. We, the researchers, believe that the proposed prototype of runway lights and markings would be of great assistance to first-year AMT students because it will serve as a visual reference for them and will have a favorable impact on them during their learning process in conversations.
Scope and limitation of the study. This proposed prototype focuses solely on an airport runway, which consists of runway lights and markings. These runway markings provide precise placement of the runway and are oriented similarly to the actual runway. Factors such as the size of the specific marking and the complexities of its design are deemed irrelevant because of the purpose of this study is to concentrate on the functions of the marking and lights of runway operations. Statistical treatment. The researchers will be using the semantic differential scale in rating the prototype model, which uses a rating scale in which people are asked to rate a product or an output using multi-point rating option. It includes frequency, percentage, which will be used to describe the profile of the respondents in terms of age and sex. Weighted mean, which also be used to determine the assessment of the respondents on the runway prototype as an instructional material. The formula that we use is the weighted arithmetic mean is equals to the summation of products of frequency and ways over the number of responses per item. Here we use a range scale. The range scale 4.0 to 3.01 indicates excellent. Range scale 3.0 to 2.01 indicates very good. The range scale 2.0 to 1.01 indicates good. 1.0 to 0.01 indicates poor.
In statement of the problem A1, how effective is the prototype as an instructional material for the first year AMT student in learning and identifying the runway lights? Finding mean of the assessment of the prototype to the first year student as instructional material in identifying the runway lights and markings. The assessment of the prototype weighted mean is an excellent model in helping them in distinguishing the location of the runway lights and their purposes. In addition, the respondents gave an excellent rating on the visibility of the runway lights on the prototype. To the professor's performance in utilizing the prototype model, resulting excellent interpretation on the clarity of the runway marking, also in the excellent interpretation, and another excellent response in the rating the quality of the prototype model provided, which majority of the respondents had answered that they are equipped with excellent skills in determining the various runway markings because of the proposed prototype. In recommendation, it is advisable that the student have a visual learning tool such as prototype to help them understand lesson more clearly. It will also keep them interested during classroom discussions and enhance their critical thinking skills because of visual representation. In statement of the problem 1B, how effective is the prototype as an instructional material for the subject instructors in learning and identifying runway lights? Finding mean of the assessment of the prototype to the subject instructors as an instructional material in identifying the runway lights and markings. In conclusion, the assessment of the prototype as instructional material used by the subject instructor in the teaching the runway lights and marking, the instructor gave an excellent rating on the accuracy of the runway markings. In addition, the instructors expressed that the model is excellent as instructional material. The prototype model has met their expectation as subject instructor. The subject instructors give a very good interpretation in the rating accuracy, the runway lights on the prototype. Rating of very good, the interaction between the respondents and the students while using the prototype model during class hours. And on entrusting the learning of the students based on this prototype. As a recommendation, it is proposed by the researchers that other technical subjects in PILSCA-FAB may utilize and provide prototype models to the students with the respect to the subject being taught in order to keep the class discussion academically engaging and to keep the student interested throughout the whole class discussion. In statement of the problem 2, what is the perception of the airport and airway subject instructor in effectiveness of the proposed prototype in material? With the finding evaluation of the proposed prototype by the technical instructor of PILSCA-FAB. With the conclusion of technical instructor of PILSCA-FAB to sum up the response of the instructors, our majority of the instructor agrees that the proposed prototype of runway lights and markings as instructional materials enhance knowledge and application of subject content. Also, this experiment research can be put in good use, especially in the subject of airport and airways. As recommendation for the technical instructor to supplement as many instructional material on both synchronous and asynchronous meeting for the students to gain sufficient amount of practical understanding, which will serve as their foundation of knowledge in the field.
references. Through this reference, we are able to know the history of the runways, and helps us to know and it helps us to have a complete information that help us to manifest a concrete introduction. So thank you po.